As you all know, it is lovely tax season, and we decided to serve you all with our amazing accountant, Taylor. We are excited to have her here today, and we're going to talk about her story, why having an accountant and really taking that seriously as an entrepreneur is the most important thing, and really love on you through that. So welcome, Taylor.
I'm so excited to be here.
Do you want to introduce yourself and just say a little bit about you before we dive in?
I'm Taylor. I'm the founder of Bookkeeping Brunette, and I help female founders understand their numbers so they can use them to scale their businesses.
Yes, she does. Yes, she does.
She literally helps us with it, and it's the most amazing thing ever. This was something that Kelly and I knew when we started Fuse. Both of us looked at each other because we had both done our own kind of month, or I did my own month-to-month bookkeeping in my previous business. Did you?
My ex-husband did, and then my dad is an accountant, so I literally pushed it to him when I got divorced because I was like, I don't want to.
Yeah. So when we started Fuse, we were both like, the first thing we're outsourcing is bookkeeping because hell no.
Exactly.
So
exactly. Yes, and we both saw Taylor at an event live speak, and so that literally we went, oh, she actually knows what she's talking about, and she's a female, and she loves money. We love this.
And then, Taylor, you and I got to do a coaching certification program together where we got to know each other a little bit more, too. So people, come into your life at random times, and I feel like it's always meant to be. There's always a reason.
Exactly, which we love. So really just diving right in, Taylor, we like to start our episodes with a duality piece. So something really amazing, something not so amazing, but kind of tying it all together. So is there a moment in your business that you know have been either financially really struggle or just struggling in general, and then a point when you're like, I am thriving, this is the best thing that's ever happened to me?
I think this year has been really interesting because I'm at the point where I'm growing, so bringing on a team and figuring out that aspect of the business has been challenging on who I want that person to be, what that role kind of looks like, and how that implicates the business financially, because taking on someone at a higher level can cost a little bit more than my interns. So that's my struggle for the last few months, is figuring all of that stuff out with the numbers and kind of who that person needs to be, and then trying to figure out how to offboard stuff off my plate, which I'm very bad at. So I've been trying to just record looms of me doing things so that I can just sign them next month versus setting up training calls. But it's been something that's been pretty complicated this year.
But it's complicated, but terrifying, but amazing.
All the things.
Totally.
No, delegation is so freaking hard, and especially someone I know you're very proud of the work you do, and you put a lot of intention into it. I'm the same way. Kelly's the same way. It's so hard to let something go when you're but I know I would do it exactly how I want it done.
Yeah, and you have to let people figure out their own process to it, because it might not be the same process you're using, but they're going to get to the same answer. So that's been one of the things I'm working on, is making sure that I am giving them the way I would do it, but then also letting them figure out how to do it themselves.
Right, because there's nothing that feels better than finding something that someone's better at than you.
Yes.
That's honestly, it's kind of a hard ego thing for a split second, but then you go, wait, this is actually to my benefit.
Yeah, and it's always fun when I look at how long it took my assistant to do things versus me, and I'm like, oh great, I was just wasting my time before because I'll get distracted and do 5 other things and try to get one thing done, but she can just get it done, and I'm like, oh, this is so much better.
Oh gosh, yeah, we get that so hard. I think honestly for me the hardest part of delegating is knowing that we love our clients so much, so well, and so for us to be like, okay, don't drop it, is really tough. I know you obviously work with a crap ton of amazing women entrepreneurs, and you're like, this is their baby. And I feel the same way when we're delegating work off, where I'm like, okay, but marketing is literally what everyone sees about them in the world.
Yeah.
It's got to be good,
So I need you to love them as much as I love them.
Which is as much as they love themselves.
Well, and I said something to my intern one day. I was like, so what clients do you like working on the best? And she's like, well, they're all numbers to me. And I'm like, oh, because you don't know that
who the people
yet.
are.
And I'm like, I know everyone. So it's so much harder. And I'm like, but this is my client. So getting over that step is definitely the hardest, because you're everyone personally, but I'm still there. It's just in a different capacity and ability for my clients, honestly, than me doing some of the work that I am delegating off.
I feel like that's kind of lovely though too. Not that you like obviously you want the person that you're delegating any type of work to be just as like committed and passionate and like love on your clients as much as you do. However, for them to be able to have that emotional disconnect and just like look at it as this is the project, this is the assignment, it's very black and white, like this is what needs to get done, that is actually amazing, because that is going to give them more speed in doing what they need to get done. But also things aren't muddled, like they're not going to end up doing all kinds of extra work for free, like you know, all the things that tend to come up when you're like, but I love this person.
Yes, and as you scale, you realize that all the extra work for free is a really bad thing, and you need to stop doing that.
Yeah. I love a surprise and delight, but you have to be very intentional about it, because if not, then all of a sudden your entire work week is free work, and then you're like, I have to pay my bills.
Yeah, and you're like, I'm not on salary anymore. My business is paying my salary.
Totally. Brooke and I actually just had this conversation yesterday. We were building a new proposal for someone, and she was like, Kelly, I need you to be more specific on what you're offering. And I was like, but I don't know. Like, I don't really know how I can love on them best until I'm really in. It's like, I don't care. This is how we get in trouble. It's like, crap, you're right.
Yeah. I literally messaged her. I was like, give me numbers. How many emails is this? How many yada yada? And she's like, ugh, I literally hate when you ask me this. And I'm like, I know.
Well,
I know.
The emails,
I'm gonna ask you anyway.
The emails and the text and all of the side stuff is what always gets you in the most trouble, because you're not counting it when you're doing stuff, and then you're like, oh, I spent 45 minutes doing emails and I didn't bill for that, or that wasn't accounted for in my time budget that I gave. So that's something to always watch out for.
Exactly. Yeah. And, you know, and that's an easy thing to get burned on. In every facet, because I've had many conversations where she or I have been like, did you bill for that? And we're both like, no.
Oh, yeah. I call Kelly out. She calls me out just as much. Like,
we learn. We are learning not to give the entire kitchen sink away for free.
Hey, I've been doing that for like 2.5 years, so I'm trying to learn on that one too. It's so hard, and I have been better this year too about time tracking, because I was really against it at first, but I realized it's really the only way to kind of scale is knowing where you're spending your time, and sometimes it's eye-opening where you're like, oh, this only takes me an hour, and then you time it and you're like, oh no, this took me more than an hour, so I'm not billing accurately.
Time tracking is a come to Jesus moment for anyone who has never done it in their business. I was also super against it, but it helped with two things. One, exactly what you said, like, oh, I thought this took me an hour, it takes me 8. Wow. Two, I am also the human that can very easily have too many tabs open and try to bounce from like 30 projects at one time, and then nothing gets done in an hour and a half. And when you time track, like, you're a lot more like tunnel vision, because you're like, I'm not gonna time track myself when I'm not actually working on this anymore. It really makes you zoom in more and actually be more productive. So like, time tracking, I'm a fan.
Big fan.
Yeah.
Taylor, I'm really curious, because this is something that I work on personally, Brooke works on personally. Do you have any money mindset issues yourself as like a CPA and a money human? Like, do you have any of you struggle with, or are you just an angel and have no problems when it comes to
my own bookkeeping is a mess, because I'm doing everyone else's all the time.
We get it.
I was actually up till midnight the other night doing my own stuff, because I thought I had my intern go through it, and when I went into the accounting software, it was like unreconciled, and I was talking to her and I was like, I swear we went through this, I don't know what happened. But like, the software I use is a cheaper software that's not QuickBooks, so it doesn't work as great. And I was like, because I can't deal with this anymore. Something that I also constantly have to work on, I think too, as entrepreneurs, as you transition out of your corporate job, it's very different, because I feel like I was used to making a 6-figure salary and just kind of spending money as I pleased. And the last year and a half being self-employed, it's very much, do I need this thing? Should I be spending money here? Or is my money better served me like going back into the business than me buying like this stupid thing that I'm going to end up in a pile to Goodwill in a month from now? So it definitely is a work in progress, I think, for everyone. And that's one of my goals for this year, is being better about my own business finances, because I kind of know what's going in and out the door just based on my credit cards and invoices, but really tracking that more, because as I scale, it's more money that's going out the door, and you're like, okay, chunk of money going, and should it be going somewhere else? And that's what I've been doing a lot of recently, is like, I was paying for a lot of coaching before and learning and development before, and as my business scaled, I've been like, no, I need to pay for a team member to actually help me, because otherwise I'm not going to be able to scale. And I think it's a learning experience. And I think it's something you constantly have to work on, because then I even get it where I'm like, oh my God, I'm billing this client too much. I shouldn't be billing this much. And like figuring out, like, no, this is the service you're providing for them. So I don't think it goes away. And I don't think anyone's perfect with it. I think it's something that you constantly have to keep working on, because as you grow, it's bigger and bigger numbers that you're like, ooh, this feels weird. But like, I'm like an accounting wouldn't think twice about billing them double this for the same service. So that's been something I've really been struggling with as like I scale, is like figuring out my price point, because I still want to be approachable to everyone, but I also need to be able to pay for my team. And
I really was hoping that you were like, no, I'm amazing. I have zero money mindset problems. I am incredible. I was really hoping for that answer, actually. So it's really lovely and humbling, actually.
If you asked me 2 years ago, I would have said that. I would have been like, no, it's fine. I get my paycheck and it comes in and I do whatever I want with it.
Yeah.
I think money mindset is always such a fun topic, and we definitely have that slated as something for us to talk about later in the call, because it's something that affects so many people, honestly everyone, probably to different degrees. But I also just really love what you mentioned with just the awareness piece of like knowing what's going in and out of business. Like I can't remember who the interview was. I think it was maybe Mark Cuban that was being interviewed, and Kelly and I talk about it often, because he was like asking someone, how much is in your business checking account, how much is in your business savings, how much did you make today, like those types of questions, and they weren't able to answer.
It was probably around like 20,000 is probably in my savings. Probably about this. I spent like, I don't know, like maybe $500 yesterday.
Yeah, and Mark was like, that's why you're not rich, basically. That's why, he was like, you need to know the difference between someone who really makes it far in business and someone who doesn't, is awareness, and it's being completely face-to-face with the reality of what's coming in, what's going out, where is it going. So Kelly and I have actually added to our own end of days a money section to it that's like, what's in the checking, what's in the savings, what's on my credit card, what's outstanding, all of that. So it's just it's an everyday like facing it until it becomes such a habit and ingrained piece, because there is nothing more empowering than knowing what is going on. Avoidance is going to get you nowhere.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And also, you have to make sure you're getting paid. So many of my clients have outstanding receivables for like months, and then they're like, I don't have any cash, and I'm like, okay, but you have $100,000 that hasn't been paid. So why aren't you following up with those clients? Why did you let it get that long that they haven't paid you? And I'm happy to do it for you, but why aren't we getting this money? Why aren't we chasing this down? This shouldn't be waiting that long. And sometimes I was bad about that too, when I would send stuff and not have the chance to like check in on it. But now having a team, like we're looking every week, and if someone's not paying, we're reaching out to them and making sure that it's getting paid, because I have bills to pay, and if I'm service, I'm probably paying someone in my team for some of that work as well.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right?
You feel like a
and
jerk.
that's hard. Yes, that's hard, because we are people facing. So like if you had someone on your team that was just sending like an automatic, you need to pay this, get it together, is different than you being like, hey, Brooke, can you pay me, please? I love you. It's different.
No, that's hard. And that's why I've started having my assistant do the follow-up, because I feel like then it's not me doing it, and then you kind of aren't ruining your relationship with the client. But at the same time, like, you're giving them a service, they should be paying you. I literally, if an invoice gets in my inbox, I pay it right away, because otherwise I will probably forget. And most of the time you could just put on your credit card.
Right. And you'll figure that one out later. In a large corporate environment, most people that have relationships with someone at that office is usually a salesperson, or maybe someone in marketing, or on the influencer team, depending on who you are. But it's the AR team that's really billing people. It's it's the finance team that gets to deal with kind of like the bad cop part. And so we can all find a bad cop if we have to, because everyone has that good relationship with us. Amazing. We have Taylor as our bad cop.
That's what I'm always like. I'm happy to be the bad cop. One of my clients had something that was outstanding for 6 months, and she's like, can you try emailing them? And I'm like, yep, I'll try emailing them. And they still didn't get back to us. But I was like, we could try and see, because sometimes having someone else email you what gets you to actually pay it.
Right. Careful what you wish for.
Yeah. I mean, but everyone deserves to get paid, because the reality is, and I know a lot of times people in that situation, it's because like they don't have it. Like they're probably waiting on their human to pay them. I totally get that, but it can be hard.
Yeah.
Hard. Okay, tell us a little bit about your story. How did you, so you mentioned you had the 6-figure job and you loved it, and it wasn't like, it was nice to just be able to live that life. What made you transition into entrepreneurship?
Well, I didn't love the job. I loved the paycheck.
Fair point.
So I started my career in corporate accounting. I worked in startups for 6.5 years before starting my business. I was mostly biotech because that's kind of what's in the Boston area. And I was oftentimes the first accountant in the door. So I had the opportunity to build out the accounting department at the teams I worked in, which was really cool because I got to figure out how to clean up books that weren't necessarily great because they had some consultant doing them that could care really less, even though they were paying them a lot of money. And a lot of my early career was figuring this stuff out, putting in processes, and then working cross-functionally in HR and with the finance team. So I really got to see all areas of accounting, which was cool because it's really helped me build my business today. I really made the transition to entrepreneurship because I was feeling burnt out in corporate. I worked at a company that went public in 2020. And after working there for 3.5 years, they started pushing people out the door. And it went from being the greatest employee to no one likes working with you. You have a bad attitude about things. And I was like, I don't think my attitude's changed. I'm not really sure what's going on here. And I was like, I'm not really wanting to deal with this. And I was also like, I've been doing 3 jobs for 2 years. So I'm glad this is now how this is going to end. But I went to another company and there was a lot of drama there. And I was just to the point where I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And I realized there was such a gap in finance resources for entrepreneurs. And I was like, I could really fill that gap and really help create value added accounting, because I think there's bookkeepers, they just give you reports at the end of the month, but that's really not what I do, because I'm really involved in businesses, making sure that they understand the reports I'm giving them, and then also they can use that data to really grow and scale their business. And that I'm here if you have questions like, should I hire a team member? What is putting myself on payroll look like? How do I even set up payroll? And whatever other questions you could possibly come up with. I really support my client as financial partners through their entrepreneurial journey. And it's been so much fun getting to work with all of you, learning about all your businesses and watching them grow. And it's so much better than being in corporate.
That's amazing. I didn't know that you had the startup moment, because that is very different from being at like a top 5 accounting firm. And so I actually feel like that really sets you apart, because you were able to touch every piece, like you said. Because then when you started your business, you're almost like, okay, I had this startup mentality, but you still have that skill set of like, okay, how do I do this? How do I do this? I think that's lovely. Okay, what a beautiful like progression. I mean, corporate is hard and culture changes are hard. I've dealt with that multiple times, and that's one reason why I started my first business. And so I feel that, and I want to hold space for that, because if anyone is listening that's also going through this or has gone through this, it's super tough. But you can do it. But really, I want to applaud you, because that's also very hard. Because it is the stability and the knowing that I can check off at the end of the day. Like, I can go in, I can put my headphones on, I can work on spreadsheets, and then at 4 o'clock, like, I'm going. No one talk to me till 8 a.m. tomorrow morning, you know? And now it's a little bit different. So I just want to applaud you, because it is a different lifestyle, but also what a cool transition for you.
No, and I think in startup, it's very similar to entrepreneurship, because you're kind of on 24/7. So I feel like I was never like the checkout at 5 person. So I was like, if I'm not checking out at 5, I'm going to do it for myself, not for someone else.
Okay, good.
That was a big shift for me as well. It was like, okay, if I'm going to be expected, because similar to you, like you mentioned that you had I'm working 3 jobs. Was that because 2020 COVID, was there a bunch of layoffs and you were the one of the few that stayed on? Is that how you ended up with all those positions? Or?
No, so we kind of grew, and they wanted to give money to the other functions and not to the accounting functions. And then they fired someone for not doing their job, and they were like, but you're kind of just doing his job anyways. Like, you could just take it over. It's not that much extra work since you were kind of doing it. And I was like, okay. But then as we kept growing, it was becoming more and more work. But they were like, we can't really backfill the accounting department. We need to keep a lean G&A.
I ended up doing multiple positions in my last corporate job as well, but it was just due to COVID and layoffs and all of that kind of stuff. But it does, like, you eventually hit that wall of like resentment for it, because you're like, okay, cool, I'm so down to be doing all of this extra work, but like, I'm gonna need some extra pay. And when that doesn't happen, like, if you're gonna be putting all of that work in anyway, it may as well fill your pocket more and start your own business and build your own thing. When it comes to entrepreneurship in general, what has been the most fulfilling part? Other than I get to do it for myself now.
I think getting to work with I had some male clients along the way, but getting to work with all female founders now has been really awesome. I'm kind of in the place where I've been working with some of my clients long enough that I'm now really getting to see their businesses grow and scale over the last few years. For 2024, a lot of my clients that I had started with, I've really seen take off in their businesses. It's been a lot of fun getting to watch them like grow and scale, and how their businesses have changed. Helping them make those decisions of growth has been really cool. And that's how I've also realized that like even as you grow, there's always going to be something that you're feeling imposter syndrome about, or the money mindset stuff. It's like it just keeps coming because there's more expenses and there's more revenue, and then there's more things that you have to, but it's so much fun like seeing that like my work has actually helped them create these actual businesses, and they're not just like side hustles or hobbies, or actually costing you money, because a lot of business owners have these businesses that are just like a liability for them because they're just putting money into it, but they're not getting any money out of it.
Right. Yeah. I've heard the saying multiple times of like there's a devil at every level. Every time you grow, you're like, well, you're going to hit it. Like this is going to be hard. You're going to go through some crap, but then you're going to push through. And I think that is so true. I saw something actually on social media recently that said, if you can't step away from your business, you don't have a business, you have a hobby. And so that is a huge lesson in general that Brooke and I are trying to learn. If like we make money while we rest.
Yeah.
You know,
which is hard.
Our business is fine when we rest. It's going to be okay. We're not, doing brain surgery over here.
Yeah.
And so that is a huge lesson. And I really love that mission of just you're able to love on people and really help them move to that next level. And I'm sure that they actually love having you on that journey with them too. So that's beautiful.
I know we do. So
Absolutely. We couldn't do it without you. So absolutely.
No. Why bookkeeping? What did Baby Taylor, like, were you always just a love for math? Like,
no. So I always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I didn't really know what that entailed, but like I knew I wanted to do something where I had my own business from like a very early age. I used to like pretend I had my own fashion company, and I would like make business plans for it. And I took a sewing class in high school to learn how to sew, and then I was like, I'm never going to be able to do this. But when I was looking at colleges, I was like, I want to go to a school that specializes in business, but I didn't really know what I want to do. So I went in undecided, and I took at the university I went to, you had to take classes in all the disciplines of business. I had done a few other classes in like finance and marketing and management stuff, which I really didn't like the management stuff. I feel like it's a lot of crap. Mm-hmm. So I was like,
like adult babies.
Yeah. So I was like, this isn't for me, but I really did end up liking accounting. And I was like, I feel like I could do a lot with this. And if I ever wanted to start my own business someday, I could use it. Kind of went down that accounting path. And all through college, I went back and forth. Like, do I want an accounting degree? Do I want a finance degree? And I had the option to have an accounting and finance degree. So I ended up going with both, which I feel like is kind of makes sense for all my business, because I feel like I do bookkeeping, but I also now have added in like financial planning and business strategy support as well, because I really think you need both of them to grow and scale your business, where bookkeeping is only a piece of it. But if you don't know how to manage your cash flow, if you don't know how to plan for the future of your business, then you're only having half the puzzle. So that's why I think they work really well together. And that's how I got into doing both for my business. And I thought about bookkeeping. I feel like even as I was leaving corporate, people were like, oh, you're going to do bookkeeping. Like, it's almost like something that's like below people. But I'm like, it is so important. And I need to do something that I can use my expertise so that I can get out of corporate fast. And as I dove into it, I was like, wait, I would be really good at this. Like, this is something that I've kind of done all my career, because a lot of it is like explaining to people that don't have a finance background how to understand their numbers, which I was doing a lot in corporate, working with majority scientists and people that weren't necessarily finance people on how they were spending money for the company. And I was like, I can really take this knowledge and translate it into my business, which is what I have done. So it wasn't always bookkeeping. I still am always like, I want to just go open a cafe somewhere and just like do that. But everyone tells me that's more work than bookkeeping. So I'm like, maybe I'll just stick to bookkeeping for now.
And you're just like, frequent cafes and enjoy them.
Yeah. Well, there's none.
Right?
There's none around me that are good, and it's so frustrating because even some of the ones I used to like in Boston, I feel like they've gone downhill since the pandemic, and I'm like, "Ugh, I wish there was one closer to me, but
Oh, I would be devastated. Like I live in Seattle for many reasons, and one of them is the coffee on every corner. And if it was bad coffee on every corner, I would not be okay. So if you need support on building a whole cafe, we are down to help you support. Right? That would be a travesty if there was not good coffee.
yes,
around.
no, I have Starbucks and Dunkin' Donuts
Well, at least they're consistent.
sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you should totally, do you still have any of those business plans that you made as a kid?
I think I do at my parents' house somewhere because I think I found one like recently, and I was like, wow, I actually like made more of a business plan than I think I would have thought for me being like 14.
That's adorable, and that should be
Cute.
something you like treasure forever. Because I feel like that's like such a universe, God, whatever anyone insert your favorite word there. It's very much a moment of the sign was there from the beginning. Like you were always meant to go down this path, and I think that's so cool.
Well, it was really funny because when I started my business, I put on my calendar, I think when I wanted to stay in corporate until I turned 30, and I was going to leave in March after I got my bonus. And I must have never deleted it from my calendar, but I was going to schedule a meeting the other day, and I saw a calendar invite that was like last day in corporate, and I was like, what is this? And then I remembered, I was like, oh, when I started my business, I wanted to stay until I was 30, and then afterwards I was like, screw that, I'm not staying this long. But I was like, oh, that was a full circle moment of like, now I'm almost 2 years into entrepreneurship, and I was like, this is funny that I put this on my calendar and totally forgot about it.
I actually really love that. Like, that is a memory that is so core that even if you're like, I can't believe I put that on my calendar, you did it for future Taylor to be like, oh, what a good day.
Yeah.
Like, just in case you're still there, GTFO. So, transitioning a little bit, because I think the elephant in the room here is tax day is right around the corner.
Yes.
Every entrepreneur's favorite day of the year.
It is when you have an amazing accountant, right?
It honestly, oh my God, night and day difference since having you doing bookkeeping
Yikes.
versus dealing with it myself in previous of business. Like, even my husband is very much like, you mean we don't have to like reconcile an entire year's worth of expenses in one night again? And I'm like, no, how good is that?
You're welcome.
Nope, we got that covered for you.
Yeah.
Or like finding the miscellaneous like personal transactions that accidentally hit your personal card, even though I did have a few of those this year that I was like, oh wait, I think this actually hit my personal card. So I was like looking through it. I was like, let me make sure I didn't miss anything, but try to move everything onto my business cards.
I miss
Likewise.
stuff. I'm getting better at slowly but surely.
It's hard.
Yeah, it's hard. Because sometimes you just pull the card and you swipe.
Yeah.
What are your best tips? Let's like tell the people what they want to hear. What are your best tips from a finance professional on prepping for tax day without having a full-blown meltdown? And then even like why prepping for it is kind of a non-negotiable, and how so many people skip that, i.e. I did for years, and it would be like a all-nighter.
Well,
the
I
week
think
taxes being due.
prepping for it is important because you need to know what's going on in your business month over month. Looking back historically in April and seeing what happened in January of last year isn't helpful for you anymore. And your business is probably in a totally different place than it was last year, and you need to be able to course correct quickly. And the only way to course correct quickly is if you know where your money's going and where your money's coming in from. And if you're not looking at it, odds are you probably don't know all of the expenses you have. Most of the time, people are pretty good at knowing where their revenue's around, because I feel like that's something you're looking at more frequently and you're like setting up contracts. But the expenses are always the big unknown for small business owners. And if you're not looking at it frequently, you're not going to know where your money's going. And then you could be spending money on a lot of shit you don't actually need. And especially business where you feel like I need to buy everything because I need this course, I need this coaching, I need all of these things. You can honestly spend so much extra money that you don't need to be spending, because a lot of this don't really need.
And I feel like, especially with your point on the courses, and you kind of even touched on a little bit earlier, in the first like year or so in business, I feel like many people, I know I did, I spent so much more money on continuing education and coaching because I don't know how to run a business. I like designing stuff.
Yeah.
I don't want to figure out bookkeeping and all these things. And so I don't think that's a bad thing. I think spending money on education and coaching and helping you get set up is good. And I think that mentorship is something that you should have every step of the way. However, there does come a point in business where you can't just keep throwing money at the how to make 10K this month courses that you're not actually implementing or executing. And you need to get like really real with yourself and go, okay, cool. I just took 16 courses in this past year. I need to give myself a year to actually implement the stuff that I've learned before buying another, because if not, I'm just burning money.
It definitely is one of those things where it's like invest in professionals where you need to. And then if you are going to DIY stuff, find as many free resources first before buying the courses, because we all do it because the flashy marketing of like, I want to make 10K in a month. How do I do it? And then it's all the same stuff.
Correct.
The other thing for setting yourself up for success is making sure that you separate out your business and personal transactions, because when you're mixing them all together, you're going to be up till God knows when before you have to get your stuff over to your CPA, trying to figure out where you charge this stuff, where the money went in, how your clients paid you. So if it's all contained to your 2 accounts, sometimes maybe 3, it's going to be so much easier for you come tax season, because you're not going to have to worry about tracking all these expenses through your personal accounts, which even gone through the process recently with some of my clients of like going through all of their personal accounts that they put stuff on. And it's always like, oh, I have one card that I swear I put everything on. And then 6 cards later, we're like finding things on every card, and you're never going to sit there and do it yourself. So you're probably missing out on a lot of tax deductions, and you're probably spending way more money than what you were supposed to be spending. So it's so important to get those numbers in real time and make sure, at least, even if you're not doing your bookkeeping, that you're seeing how much you're spending on your business. But you really should be doing your bookkeeping monthly or at least quarterly. You need to know what's going on in your business, because you need to be able to course correct quickly, because doing stuff over and over again that's not working isn't going to help your business grow.
Correct.
And I can even attest too with in my first year in business, I definitely attempted to be diligent on trying to put all the business expenses on a specific card, but life happens, and like things swap around, and you're like, oh wait, that card got canceled. Let's shift it to this one. Like it expired or whatever. And yeah, it's like days of staying up all night trying to reconcile that at the end of the year if you're not super diligent doing it monthly, because it's like I have to pull 5 different statements now, and it's just a mess to untangle. So like, just don't do it.
Well, and it is nicer now because a lot of the cards will let you like transfer subscriptions to the new card if they have to give you a new card number. But I had to get a new card over the summer for my personal card, and it was a nightmare because I had to remember how to change half the stuff that's been on it for like 3 years. And I'm like, this is such a pain in the butt. But it was a good thing because I got rid of a ton of shit that I was like, I don't want to be paying for this anymore. Let me just cancel it. But it is such a pain, and then you don't know what you're paying for because it's just hitting your card every month and your personal card that much or very closely.
Does anyone know what all the random Apple charges are? Anyone?
Anyone.
When I tell you there's like 30 of them on my statement a month. $2.99, $12.99, $9.99, $3.99. I'm like, what are you?
Yeah, and they keep happening. Yeah. Like these are recurring, and they multiply. They're like rabbits.
And then I go into Apple and I'm like, I don't have any. Like I'm like, I have one subscription that I swear I paid annually for. So like, is this
correct?
They're just making money off of it.
I have a conspiracy on that. Yeah, I have a conspiracy theory on that for sure.
That and Facebook ads, because I think sometimes run continuously and you're not even running ads, but like somehow you're getting charged for ads and you're like, I don't think I'm running ads. And it's like, well, there's a bunch of Facebook charges on.
Yep.
Yes, and that is another company that you'll never get on. Like that will never be fixed.
No.
It's just happening.
Cancel the card.
Yes.
May as well.
Literally.
So what is one thing business owners miss when it comes to their numbers? You've worked with so many businesses at this point, so I'm sure you see patterns.
A lot of things. I definitely think we pay a lot more for subscriptions than I think we do. And another thing is the payment processing fees on things I feel like we often are not paying attention to, which those can really add up. And I love to put things on my credit card more than anyone, so I won't stop charging my client on credit card. Also, I think it makes it easier for you actually getting paid. But making sure you're actively like thinking about that when you're pricing is so important, because at the end of the year, it could be $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 that you pay to Stripe or PayPal or whatever processor you're using for fees that could be money in your pocket. So it's just being careful about that as well. And then making sure if you're not using stuff to cancel it, because so many of us sign up for things and do free trials and we never like it or we forget about it. And then we're just paying for it for months. The Apple charges where you're like, I don't know what I'm paying for it, but it's hitting my account every month. Things like that are always like hidden costs that you're like, oh, I just pay for it, but I'm not actually using it, are something that I think a lot of entrepreneurs like miss out on just because a lot of us don't have the time. And not having the time to look at your numbers really shouldn't be your excuse though, because I think a lot of us will be like, oh, I don't have the time. If you're working with me, you get a report in your inbox every month with a loop. You could just quickly like watch through that. But I know a lot of my clients don't open them or look at them at all. And it's makes me so mad because I'm like, you're missing out on so much data that you could use to grow your business. And then another thing that I think a lot of us do wrong, especially as we're growing, is our pricing, because we don't know how to price. We're kind of using how other people price, but then we're not necessarily using apples to apples compare the services we're offering. We're guessing on pricing. We don't know how to budget like our time to hit those numbers. So I think that's something that a lot of us have to constantly be working on, is like figuring out, am I pricing correctly? And a lot of the times it is talking to other business owners and sharing about money, which a lot of us don't like to do. But I have no problem asking other bookkeepers I know what they're charging for stuff, if they think I'm underpricing for something, if I'm overpricing for something, and just getting their feedback, because we don't know what we don't know. And you also don't want to be undercharging because you don't know what the industry standard is. And I think that happens for a lot of us because we leave corporate and we're like, $100 an hour seems like a lot, but $100 an hour in corporate is a lot. $100 an hour as a business owner is probably not necessarily as much as you think, because not only is it your salary, but then you're paying taxes separately. Then you're paying for actually operating the business on top of that. So that money becomes smaller and smaller. And your $100 is now probably like $20 by the time it actually hits you
Your
as the
account.
entrepreneur.
Yeah.
So you need to be careful with how you're pricing in order to sustain your business. And then as you bring on employees, making sure that those rates make sense with what's going out the door for your services. Because if you're bringing on employees that are priced at $90, then you're not making any profit. And then you have even less money to use to grow and scale the business.
And that is a big thing too, with what you just said. I feel like so many entrepreneurs, I know I wasn't great at it when I first started, don't take into account the cost of operating the business when it comes to pricing. They're just like, this service I think is worth X amount of dollars, but they don't sit down and go, kind of with the time tracking that we mentioned earlier, they don't sit down and go, this service, yes, I want to price it at this theoretically, but it actually takes me this many hours to do. This is what I'm paying in subscriptions to get it done. This is what I'm doing. Yeah. And that number is so much bigger than most people think, and it should be taken into account when it comes to pricing. And a lot of people just kind of pick a number that feels good. And I'm a huge intuition girly, don't get me wrong. So I'm all about things feeling good.
Me too. And I'm like, I think this feels like it should be around.
But like the math has to math. And like, this is a girl, I'm not great at math, but like the math has to math. I know that, you know?
No, and especially as you're growing an agency, it's even more important because you need to make sure that you have the margins on things. And I think that's something that like I didn't necessarily know at first, because I feel like a lot of people in the building your business space are like for online businesses that are operated a little bit differently, where you have more of a course model or you're doing a group coaching program where you have higher margins. But with an agency type business like mine or yours, your margins are your people or the people doing the work, which like that you have to make sure that you're getting those right. And it's hard bringing on people because you're like, I don't want to undersell your service, but at the same time, you're not getting the client yourself. You're working for me, who's now covering all of the cost of holding the business on top of paying your consulting fee or your salary. So that's also something that I feel like has been something that I've been working through. I want to pay everyone a fair wage, but making sure it's a fair wage for your business, and not everyone's meant to work under you. If you want a higher wage, you might have to go out and start your own business to get the higher wage. Whereas if you're working under someone, you have to be more flexible with what you can charge because they have margins on the back end where they're capped at what they can charge as well.
It is kind of the reality, and it's something that you do learn as a business owner because you may not realize it in corporate. Yes, everyone deserves to get paid their worth. Actually, I really even hate the worth comment because worth and money should not be tied, but everyone deserves to get paid for what they're doing. However, as an employee or a contractor, you do not have the bills that the business has to keep said business running. And that is a reality that I will admit I didn't think of as much when I was an employee versus running the business and going like, I would love to pay this contractor $80 an hour. I would love that more than life itself. I don't have that to pay you plus all the business expenses.
And my client's not going to pay me enough that like I can pay you that. And do you want to get paid? So that's something I learned because I brought someone on very briefly in February, right before I was going on vacation, that was kind of at a higher level. And I was like, okay, this will be perfect. I can train her. And then that will give me more bandwidth to kind of get my assistant, who I really love working with. And I think she does a phenomenal job. And I really have been getting her into the bookkeeping stuff. So I wanted to be able to spend time ramping her up more. So I was like, I'll bring in this person and use it as a Band-Aid solution. But she wanted such a high hourly rate. And then when I started giving her stuff, then she was milking the hours that she was billing me. And I was like, this doesn't work for me. I have a set price for my clients and I have a set time schedule. And I can't tell you that you have to be faster, but also like this, like your corporate mentality doesn't work when you're a small business owner because you have margins you have to hit. And for a client, I might only allocate 5 hours. If you're spending 3 hours doing something stupid, then that's killing my margin on it. So it's getting really comfortable with your numbers. And I ended up letting her go like a few weeks later because I was like, this isn't going to work. And I've been really just getting my assistant more and more up to speed on things kind of. And it's taken me a little bit longer just because I need to go through and make blooms and do all the things for her. But it's so much better because she gets the work done. She's quick about it and she gets the model where I think it's a hard transition from people from corporate because it's like when I was in corporate, I would take as slow as time or like I would pretend it was taking me longer because I was doing something else on the side that I didn't want them to know because I was bored out of my mind. But in my business, I'm like always moving around. So that's something that you have to think about because you don't think about it and then you're like, oh, this is adding up way too quickly, or people don't work as fast as you do. And that hard reality as a small business owner is like, you can bring on employees, but not all of them are going to work as fast as you do. So you have to factor that in when you're figuring out your pricing as well. And it was a hard lesson to learn because I was like, I don't want to have to be like, okay, this isn't working out, but it's not working out. I have to think about paying myself and paying the rest of my team. And I can't overcharge my clients because you want to dilly-dally.
Yeah. And I think that really comes down to that key core value piece of these are the core values of my business and the people we hire on have to match. And I think it's very quick, like you said, like it's quick to know if someone either just doesn't fit or they really were in that corporate environment. Because like you said, I remember years of my life being like, oh, it's fine. I'll just finish this tomorrow. No big deal. I'm still getting paid. What are they going to do about it? And now I'm like, oh my God, if this doesn't get done in the faster time frame, we are losing money. Yeah. And so I think to have someone that has that integrity, that hardworking mentality, and also their own entrepreneurial spirit on a team that's really small is really what shines. And we've had that lesson as well because we want to hire the contractors that are so freaking good at their job. They're better than we are, but we don't have that. And so that is a lesson I think that probably every entrepreneur goes through. And I appreciate your authenticity and like your vulnerability in speaking that truth because that is really something that everyone goes through, I think.
And something I learned too about that is sometimes it's easier to train people that don't necessarily know what they're doing or have that experience because they're more likely to learn and absorb it. And then you can teach them really your way versus trying to fix someone learning a different way that isn't necessarily the way you like to do things. So I do think it's helpful both ways because that's why I love working with my intern too, is because I'm really showing her how to do things. And it does take more time, but then they're going to do it the way that you want it done. And it's not retraining someone that does things their own way that might not necessarily be the best fit for the business.
Yeah.
It's deciding where you want to spend that time. Do you want to allocate it on the front end to get the initial training done because they're going to need a little more hand-holding, or is it going to be the same amount of time just over a longer period because you're having to break bad habits and catch them in the moment, or et cetera, et cetera?
And what I've seen with most of my clients is usually bringing on the person with less experience and training them your way has actually worked out more. So I don't know why I was like, oh, this will just magically work. But I think that's something like term member too. It's easier to train someone your way than to put a band-aid on something just for a quick solution.
100%. And especially in an intern role, it probably means more to them that you're able to take that extra time and really love on them. We're in the middle of looking for interns too. And so this is a really beautiful time to even have this conversation with you, is because I think interns have such a different power than like regular employees, one might say.
And I think it's interesting working for entrepreneurs because you get to see so much that you're not seeing if you get a job anywhere else. And I think that's what interns end up really appreciating about it, is getting that experience and seeing kind of what it's like to own a business.
There's also so much to be said about the project management piece too, because I think that's just also kind of like the mindset shift of being an owner and a CEO rather than an employee in your business. It does become a place where you start to manage more and make the big decisions, but you are delegating out the day-to-day work so that you can work on your business instead of in it. And it's a hard shift.
Yes. And it's like figuring out a way to do it that makes sense. And that's what I've been trying to do. And that's been the hardest part because I'm not a project manager. So I'm like, I don't know like how to even delegate some of this stuff, but making processes has been so helpful because then it is easier to be like, okay, this goes to this person, or this is how you pull these things. And it makes it so much smoother, but it just takes so much work. So anyone starting out, my advice is start making process documents early, because people told me that and I didn't listen. And I wish that I did them for each client as I started out, because then I'd have a process of this is what you do each client. And now I'm doing it now. And it's so much harder because you don't have the time to do it, especially as you're growing. And especially once you have more clients than there are you, it gets so much harder.
Make an SOP folder. Kelly and I are literally in the middle of it right now. And the irony is my last corporate job, I was in ops. I was helping make SOPs. I'm like, you know this, Brooke, you did this. Yet I still didn't listen.
No one wants to make SOPs.
Yeah. And as an entrepreneur, you're doing 12 million things at every moment of time. So you're just like, okay, just get this done, move this on. And now you're like, wow, I'm doing this again. This would have been much easier if I just took 15 minutes and typed up what the process was.
Or while you're going through it. Now that's why I like Loom so much, because I'm like, while I'm going through it, I can just kind of walk through it. So it might take me 5 extra minutes versus if I was actually typing a full SOP would probably take me a lot longer. You can convert it into like SOP docs, but most of my team likes Looms anyway, so I haven't really been doing that. But it's so much more helpful.
We're going to switch to a fun rapid fire question moment. What tools would you suggest make money tracking simple?
So I definitely suggest accounting software if you want to do it on your own. It's going to make your life simpler. You can integrate your cards with it and you can make sure that you're not missing anything.
Aside from Excel, is there any tools that you would suggest that just helps the tracking process?
I use QuickBooks for business stuff. I don't really use anything for my personal stuff. I usually just put it in Excel. I do have a budget template I use for my business on Excel that I like plan out the year. And I'm like, okay, this is what I should be spending. This is kind of what my revenue kind of looks like. And I'll do it on that side of things.
What about any tips you have for building just financial confidence?
I think just start looking at the data, because I always like to tell my clients money is just data. And I often think we're so ashamed to have debt. And one of the things I've kind of learned growing my business is like, debt's okay as long as you're using it in a way that is actually helping you grow. And sometimes you need to take on debt to be able to do the things that you actually want to do. If it's debt to do stupid things, it's not what you should be doing with your money. But if it is to grow your business or to be able to leave your corporate job or to do something that is actually going to help you in the long run, I do think it's okay. And I think that's something that a lot of people feel shameful about, because I know so many times I talk to entrepreneurs and they're like, I don't know how I've acquired this much debt, or like my clients aren't paying me. And then I got in this like putting things on credit cards, and then it like kind of just becomes like this vicious cycle of like, but now I'm ashamed of it because we're always told like we shouldn't have debt. We shouldn't have debt. Like you shouldn't have debt. If you have debt, it's bad. But I do think as you're growing a business, it's going to be normal, because you're going to need to take out credit somewhere, because eventually you're not going to have cash come in and you're going to have to pay your team. Eventually someone's going to not pay you on time. So it's just part of growing a business and getting comfortable with being uncomfortable and just knowing your numbers. Because if you don't know your numbers, then you are going to use debt stupidly. But I do think it could be a good tool if you know your numbers, you know what you're going to use it for, and if it's used for things that are actually moving your business forwards.
I love that perspective shift because debt, it's a scary
Same.
word. It's a
Yes.
terrifying word.
It's
And
terrifying.
the amount of conversations Kelly and I have even had, because in many ways, to service-based businesses, that you don't have the same amount of overhead that a product-based business does. That's just reality, a lovely
It
reality
is
for
true.
me.
It's
But
lovely. Yeah, it's wonderful.
yeah. And so like starting Reverie is how I first came into business. Kelly had Caffeine with Kelly. I remember being a little baby entrepreneur and getting started was not that expensive. Like, yeah, I spent money on doing like a mentorship and different things like that. But if we looked at the black and white numbers of I need these subscriptions to be able to physically deliver the services I'm going to do. I need, whatever that was a very small amount. Whereas like
Yeah.
someone who is going into a brick and mortar business or a product based business, like you might be taking out $150,000, $250,000 loan, or if not
Yeah.
more, so much more. So for me, debt in business was always something that felt unnecessary because I'm like, well, I don't need to do that because I don't have a product. And like, you can make an argument with that. And I think it's incredible if you can grow your business without debt at all. But like, it has been a big perspective shift of going like, most business owners do utilize a loan or credit or whatever it may be in certain ways to help them get where they want to go. So you can be the business that has the millions of dollars coming in. But that was like a really hard hill for me to understand.
Me too.
I think it's a shift too of like being an independent contractor versus trying to grow an agency, because with agency you're going to have independent contractors working under you, so you don't necessarily need, I think that's kind of what you guys were probably more operating at with your individual businesses, but now you're trying to build an agency, which is a different model. And that's one of the models that's trickier because you do have overhead in a way, not the same as a product-based business, but your overhead is your employees or the cost of all these additional things, which is nice now that we don't have like office space that we need or all these other things, but there is additional costs that come when you're moving from an independent contractor to like being more of that agency model. And like it usually does involve some sort of debt because you're usually waiting to get paid from someone. You probably need to pay employees. You kind of have to market a little bit differently. And right now everything is just so much more expensive too. So it's like one of those things where it's like, yes, we could try to do this without taking on any debt, but how are we going to get our name out there more?
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay, so shifting to another rapid fire question, what is one small shift someone can make this week to feel more financially grounded in business?
Look at your numbers, look at your expenses, see where
just like
you're
right now, pause this episode
literally
and open up
pull up your app and just look and see where your money's going, because I guarantee you there's like 2 or 3 things that you could probably cancel. I was literally on the phone with Amex this morning because I was paying for something that was something for an old client that's not even a client anymore for months. And I was like, why am I paying for this? And I was like, I can't cancel it, but I emailed her and asked her to take my card off, but she hasn't. So I'm like, I'm just going to call them and like put a hold on it. And then I had a checking account at Chase that I never used that I kept getting charged $12 for. And I was like, I don't need to be paying $12 for this account that I'm never going to use because I have another checking account somewhere else. So just small things, because they really do add up when you get to the end of the year and you're like, oh, why did I just spend this money on something stupid that I could have used to pay myself, to bring in an employee, or do anything else with?
Yep, 100%. So how can everyone work with you? Bookkeeping Brunette, how to get in touch, all that fun stuff.
And then you have fun like power hours happening. So just tell us about this.
Yes.
So I started these last year, but I wasn't really promoting them. I'm offering 90-minute sessions where you can come ask me any questions you want about bookkeeping. Some of my clients have grouped them together and we've set up bookkeeping, and they've been like DIYing their bookkeeping, because I've tried to go the course route and I realized everyone's so unique with their finances that like courses don't really work well. So this is basically 90 minutes. You can ask me whatever you want. If it's like financial planning questions, cash flow questions, anything. And I'm just there, and you can book them whenever you need them and need that support. Because I realize like some people don't necessarily need monthly bookkeeping, but they want to have that person in their corner to explain what their financial statements mean, and also ask their questions too when it's more unique to them, and not just like if I'm doing a workshop or something where it's a general question.
I love that.
Amazing.
That is so handy.
Those you have to email me to book. You can email me. It's taylor@bookkeepingbrunette.com, or I'm on LinkedIn or Instagram. Instagram's Bookkeeping Brunette. LinkedIn is Taylor Bizzoli. And then my website is bookkeepingbrunette.com.
Amazing. And
Amazing.
in closing, we love to end all of our episodes with guests with a good reflection question because you should reflect consistently. So if you could go back and sit across from yourself before this journey began, before you started the brand, before you started the business, before you even quit corporate, like little Taylor, what would you tell her?
That you're not going to believe what you have done with your
love
life.
that.
Oh, that's so
love that.
amazing.
I was thinking about that the other day. I'm like, I feel like if you asked me like 3 years ago, would I be here? I was like, this is weird. I feel like you take so many risks that you would never take in corporate once you start a business.
It is insane the roller coaster and the journey that entrepreneurship can put you on. But also it's incredible. But like you gotta be built different. Like you gotta be in it because
Totally.
it's not for it's not for the faint of heart.
You got to be a crazy person. Sometimes I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't think I'm sane most days.
Quite.
The delusional energy has
Yeah.
to be
Yeah.
key.
Yeah. The high highs and the low lows at a minute by minute basis.
Oh yeah, that's what I was literally like in February. I was like, I how am I doing this? Like some days I'm like, do I just like, why can't I just be normal?
Truly. Okay, wait, that's such a thing. And it's so funny. The amount of times Kelly and I look at each other, I look at my husband, and I'm like, I really wish I loved corporate. But also,
Some days.
I
Yeah.
don't. You could not pay me to go back.
No,
It would
that's
have
what
been
I
an
always say.
obscene salary.
I'm like, I will take debt over going back to corporate any day.
I will take figuring it out, the all-nighters, the pulling your hair out. And ideally, like you get better at it and it doesn't take doing that anymore. And it's the funnest puzzle. Yeah.
Yeah.
Taylor, thank you so much. Really,
Thank
for
you
everything.
for having me.
I'm so grateful that you could be
No
on
worries.
this episode with us and share all the things about money, finances, business, interns, and tax
Life.
day.
Yes.
Really. Happy tax day, everybody.
Thank you. We will see everyone in the next episode and go stalk Taylor.
Please.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. We have new episodes coming out every Thursday, so we will catch you in one of the next ones.
And please take some time, follow us on @FindYourFuse or email us at info@findyourfuse.com for all inquiries and all exciting things that you want to chat with us about. We love building this community and we love you. Take some time and leave a review. Anything above 5 stars, we'd love it. But really, we appreciate you and we appreciate your feedback in any form because the more feedback we can get, the better we'll get. Okay, love you. Bye.